this timid little shrew turn out to be Dragon Ball's biggest miracle? Hey guys, MasakoX here. Now I think we all know that Dragon Ball Super has some questionable moments every now and again, as well as some questionable decisions. However, one decision that wasn't questionable was the inclusion of female Saiyans within the actual main story. That not only provided some really interesting character moments, but also finally gave us in our main series, female Super Saiyans. Something I've been clamoring for the longest time, pretty much ever since I found GT and Pan didn't go Super Saiyan. One of my earliest discussion videos was on the subject, so if you want to check that out, I'll leave a link to it in the description and up top. However, upon the closure of the universe survival arc, as is often the case in some anime, some kind of notes and discussions and interviews surface that bring up some interesting facts and stories that were about the production at the beginning of it, and some of them weren't exactly good for the idea of female Super Saiyans. Because why not? There are extra headlines to be had when you're hyping up your series. Series director Ryota Nakamura and one of his producers, Satoru Takami, actually brought up the idea that the female Super Saiyans and the female Saiyans at all weren't actually in Toriyama's first draft of Dragon Ball Super's universe survival arc. Here's an excerpt of some of Herm's notes of the interview they conducted with the Dragon Ball official website. Neither Caulifla nor Kale were in Toriyama's original draft. During a conference meeting, the subject of Broly's popularity came up, and so the anime staff created Kale. They made her a girl so that she wouldn't be exactly the same as Broly. Once they showed Kale to Toriyama, he created Caulifla to go along with her. As you saw in my video detailing the entire interview and its notes, I was not best pleased at finding out that both Kale and Caulifla were kind of afterthoughts, especially Caulifla. I was filled with disappointment that Toriyama didn't come up with these characters on the first bounce, thus implying that he had no intention to bring female Saiyans to the forefront and therefore bring female Super Saiyans in his grand plan. That really irked me. Luckily for us though, as is often the case, especially with the Cell saga, thanks to a lot of editorial meddling, we managed to get some changes in place that meant that Kale and Caulifla did exist after all. The writing team behind Dragon Ball Super came up with some kind of facsimile of the Dragon Ball Z movie character Broly, who apparently is quite popular. And as a result, Toriyama, once again, instead of being a proactive writer, is a reactive writer, and therefore came up with Caulifla to fulfill his traditional buddy act idea. You know, Vegeta, Nappa, Dodoria, Zarbon, Spopovich and Yamu, you get the idea. Upon finding this out, I can imagine a lot of people were angry at the fact that the writing team were being so obvious about wanting to bring Broly into the series, although actually not bringing him in. So just make the character a girl. But me? I'm not even mad. It's just so blatant, I can't help myself from laughing. When I found that out, I was in hysterics. I just find it absolutely amusing that Nakamura-san and his team were just huddled around a desk and thought, how do we bring Broly into this story and make loads of money? I know, let's make him a girl. Having Kale in the story, even having the possibility that Broly existed in the main universe, would generate loads of hype and attention. And remember that promo when it first came out and we saw her transform into Femme Broly? Remember that phrase? That sent the internet ablaze. I was away at a convention and I felt compelled to make a video about it. Mission accomplished. They didn't want to actually put Broly in there because it would create a writer's headache, and that's just not worth their time. It would just create a massive paradox. Which movie villains are canon and which are not? It would spiral off into a debate that would go on for decades, and why do I think this would happen? It's because it's happening right now! If Kale had been just a complete carbon copy of Broly, having the power since she was born and not having control over it, I would have been sorely disappointed. But I'm not. And why is that? Well, I personally think that Kale is one of the most developed and interesting characters in the entirety of Dragon Ball Super. But Masako, you just said that she was a carbon copy of Broly, and you hate Broly, like you hate Vegeta! How dare you be so forgiving to her, Masako! Unsubscribe! I'm not being overly biased to Kale, because if you look at Dragon Ball Super, if you take Goku out of the equation of course, most of the main cast got a lot of development. I've mentioned Vegeta's character progression many times on this channel, and it goes without saying that the transformation he undertook from the beginning of Super to the end of Super was remarkable. And yeah, okay, the Tournament of Power saw him kind of slip back a little bit, but he picked it up again towards the end. From his lowest ebb that was Majin Vegeta back all those years ago to where he is at the end of Super, it's so amazing. And all of this without losing the personality traits that made him him. He's kept all of his quirks. Good job. You can't have this debate without bringing up the likes of Gohan as well. He's actually been a really good comparison to Super and its stability. You could almost make the two the same. They both started off pretty solidly, then through complacency and whatnot, they collapsed under their own weight, before trying to will themselves into doing better, then losing focus again. And it was only towards the stages of the final arc in Super that they actually got the focus back again and finally stuck with it. They finally knew what they wanted to do and they rolled with it, and so did Gohan. Yeah, and despite the fact that Gohan didn't make it through to the end alongside his father like we thought he would, he still provided quite a lot of stuff. The fact that Gohan figured at all into the tournament and was actually the team captain of Universe 7 is something that we cannot ignore, and the fact that we still have the meme of Gohan Blanco. Going from that moment when he was giving Trunks ice cream in episode 52 to where he is now, the Bang is proud of Gohan. And yes, of course, Roshi. Roshi, oh my god, that was so good. I did not expect for that character arc to stick. You know, Roshi being the pervert that he was, and he actually got rid of it. He eschewed it, and it made him really, really special again. Roshi means something now. I remember that beginning of Super, we thought, oh great, it's just going to be Roshi again. He makes a concerted effort to do better, and he sticks with it. Need I say more? All of this ties back into Kale. Her development, given her starting point, has been sensational. Now, let me talk to you guys about something behind the scenes. With all of the what-ifs I've envisaged over the last few months, as well as writing the scripts for R&R, I've really gained an appreciation for developing characters and coming up with some kind of idea about where they're going to go. When you're coming up with a character, you really have to know inside and out their wants, their needs, their direction, and just generally what makes them tick. Story arcs are key to make compelling characters. Anime is so good at that. It's almost commonplace for a character to not be the same as they were at the beginning, at the end. And we usually chastise and are disappointed when we just say, well, that character's the same as he was at the beginning. Like, what was the point of having him there? You're embarking on a journey with your chosen character, and you feel like you've gone along with them, and it makes the experience of watching that show or reading that story all the more rewarding. And I'm not saying this just to lord over everyone and just say that, oh, because I'm a writer, I'm great. No, this is something you pick up even if you're just watching a show. You begin to get it the more you watch. During my writing, I found a website called Writer's Digest, and I found this particular article to be really helpful when coming up with characters. Always keep firmly in mind that people read any novel, no matter the genre, to find out what is going to happen to a fascinating set of characters. And no, throwing something like magic into an otherwise dull as dirt character won't make her fascinating. She needs to be a fascinating person on her own. The most fully developed, deeply motivated characters are always the most compelling, no matter how ordinary they might be. So flesh them out now, and your readers will thank you later. So what this article is trying to say is that you need to have a solid construct right from the start. Not surrounded by some kind of gimmick that can hide any kind of character flaws or anything lacking. Would you like this person if they existed in the real world without magical powers or any kind of like attacks or transformations? Would you like, say for example, Kale, if she were around in the real world? Just like you. Would you feel this character is all three of these things? Relatable, likable, and believable. Yet, granted, I did mention that Kale's origins were just from Broly, to make money. But I think this might have actually been for the best for her. It's because of Broly that Kale actually got a really solid start. Broly's character model came back from the days of 1992-93, 25 years ago. There's been a lot happening in that time, that writers could look at what made Broly great, what made him not so great, therefore reflect with it, character feedback, audience feedback in particular, and come up with something different that feels modern. They can re-engineer the Broly model to be something more believable and far less ridiculous, whilst also keeping the spirit of the original character alive. At the start, Kale is someone who is completely lacking in confidence, a mere dog's body to the gang leader that is Caulifla, who is in total control of her personality and is completely secure, the complete opposite of Kale at the beginning. Her self-doubt is infectious. It's even making Caulifla doubt that, why am I keeping her around? Maybe I should just ditch her. As a result, when you first see her, she's just faded into the background. She's in the corner. She's barely contributing at all. Well, she's not contributing. This model is relatable. There are loads of people out there that feel in the same place as Kale, that they're not worth anything. They lack confidence. They feel like they're just faded into the background, in the shadows. No one's going to notice them. Despite people saying that, oh, I think you're great, they're not going to believe them. There's one key difference between Kale and Broly that I need to bring up here, and that is exposure. And I'm talking about the exposure of the power. We need to bring the power back in for a second here, because it contributes a lot to their personality. Broly had the power of the legendary Super Saiyan inside of him from basically birth. By the time we see Broly as an adult in movie 8, he's basically a walking, talking drone. He is under mind control with that bracelet thing and pendant. He's just a husk. Kale has a much more stable foothold on her integrity, whereas Broly had no integrity. Fast forward to the moment when Kale is just about to tap into those legendary powers, and at this point she is at her lowest ebb. She is desperate and in complete despair. She has failed, seemingly, to tap into the power that Kaba and Caulifla could do so easily. She sort of emulated the emotional struggle that we are completely accustomed to with the Universe 7 Super Saiyan transformation. In Kale's case, it came from a lifelong sense of worthlessness, and we just saw a complete flashpoint. When tapping into that power and then falling out of it again, it made Kale realize something, that she can do something after all. It was a turning point. She also gained the motivation and respect of Kaba and most importantly, Caulifla. Now, two of the strongest Saiyans in the entirety of Universe 6. She was up with them potentially. And we saw another flashpoint when Goku basically told her to get out of the way because she was not important to anyone. This despair came back in full force. And yeah, okay, we saw the power rise up again. This reignited the fury and sense of failure inside of Kale, but unlike the last time, this time she managed to gain much more of a handle of it. Not only that, but she had Caulifla right by her side throughout the entire thing. Now knowing that she's got Caulifla's support and that she will always be by her side, Kale can now rebuild. All it took was for just someone to believe in her, and when that happened, she realized she could do marvels. She even caught the attention of Jiren for a moment, and at that time in the series, we thought that was impossible. Okay, in the sense of actual episode counts, it's not much of an opus. All of this happened in about maybe 16, 17 episodes. But it's that swift and simple resolution that gripped me for the longest time. It was the Broly story told right and with much more competence. Thanks to all the planning and the feedback gone into the original story of the Big Lummox, they realized, the writing staff I mean, that they could correct things, they could tweak things, make something that was more compelling and that could work in a TV series format. This shy Universe 6 Saiyans realized that she could perform miracles, and I haven't even got the Kefla part yet. Kale got to join forces, literally, with her master. She had now become an equal. This made her even more confident. She got to be as one with her chosen best friend. That's the biggest sign of confidence possible inside of Dragon Ball, to fuse with someone. From that point on, I can safely say that if we were to see Kale again, she would be a completely different character. She might be a little shy from time to time. It takes time to progress things, but it will certainly be miles different from what we saw in the first episode featuring her. She started off with basically nothing and then rose up to being in the upper echelons of the Universe 6 team. She had beaten her demons back and became a true force to be reckoned with. She knows that she can make a difference in the world, and that we know she is an endearing character. We are not going to forget Kale. So what do you guys think? Do you think Kale's progressed a lot in Super? Do you think I'm just talking nonsense? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Until the next one, be sure to like and subscribe. Catch you later!